and welcome back to GBN America with me, Patrick Christys. I'm very, very, very excited for this because this is a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a heck of a long time. And here to do it is Cindy Romero. Now, Cindy is a former resident of Aurora in Colorado. And her viral video exposed the violent tactics of Venezuelan gangs in her building. But this is a much wider issue as well. It's not just her building. It appears to be right around the area. Cindy, could you just outline what happened first? So what happened for you?
Over the course of a year and a half, I was tormented, and the other tenants of our building, we were slowly tortured to move out of our rental properties so they could take over our apartments. One of the nights before I moved out, one of my video cameras happened to catch the viral video of the guys with guns who later turned out exposed the gang, the transnational gang, Agua. A lot of the people that have seen the video have pushed back, as far as government and the press, have pushed back and said that, well, it's not widespread or it's only a handful of properties. It's now coming to light that it's a lot more properties than just the one I was living in. And the police knew about it for a lot longer than they told anybody.
What kinds of things were they doing? So they were walking around, they were armed, they were beating people up, they were doing, what kind of stuff were they doing?
Well, they were doing all kinds of things. They were playing music all hours of the night, all night. I would call the police several times. The police wouldn't come. They would be standing around the properties with guns. They would be sitting in our stairwell. So when we walked up our stairs to go to our apartment, they would have to literally move their guns so we could walk up our stairs with our groceries. There was intimidation. They would stare at us when we'd carry back our groceries or our laundry. And they would ask tenants before they would finally get fed up and leave, "Are you moving?" Just repeatedly, "Are you moving? Can I get your keys?" And
When they say, can you get that key? Sorry, when they say that, do they mean like you're not selling your apartment or
right,
anything? You
no,
just want
no.
to...
They mean, "Can I get the keys so I don't have to break in the door?" Because that's what they were doing. They were going from door to door. Every time they would empty, they would kick in the door. And a lot of times they would have the doors off for days and days, but several days later they'd show up with another door and it would be installed and they would just take over the apartment. So I guess they were just trying to get rid of that step where they had to replace the door. So they just got to where they were asking the tenants for their keys before they left, just so they wouldn't have to physically break in the door.
And are these people here illegally?
Yes. Yes. I know some of the families there have applied for asylum, but these particular guys with guns, yes, they're here illegally. I've talked to several of them myself and on many occasions. And yeah, they were here illegally and they didn't try to hide it.
And this happened very, very, very close to your home, literally, in the sense that
Yes.
I believe here 6 masked gang members armed with semi-automatic rifles and handguns trying to break into your neighbour's home.
Yes. It was maybe 2 feet in front of my door. I had as the gangs and the immigrants would escalate, playing music all night, having loud parties outside, I would get more cameras. They would also ride motorcycles up into the building, into the apartments below us, and then rev up the engines at night while we would try to sleep. There was also banging on the walls, loud arguments right outside our door. That's not to mention the prostitution we were all witnesses to. Prostitution, car theft. There's so many cars in our parking lot with no tags. Drug use. There was drug selling and buying in and out of windows in my complex. This complex was in good shape before these people moved in. I know because my apartment was often checked by codes. And so I know codes would come into my apartment, make sure everything was working properly, make sure everything was fine. So these buildings kept passing codes over and over and over again. When the city finally shut down one of these properties that was rampant with gangs, they said it was a code problem. And that's just not true. And now we're finding out that there's more and more gang activity in the city than we thought. And they're still downplaying it and gaslighting the people of Aurora into believing that,
This is gaslight. I mean, this is gaslight. So it brings me perfectly on to my next point,
right.
really, which is that describe what the area was like before, which is that it was basically fine, and there was, I'm sure any area's got its issues, but it was nothing like this.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
you can see this happening with your own eyes on your own lived experience. You go to your politicians, you go to your police, and what they just don't want to deal with it. Do they not want to deal with it because you think they were afraid of what, being called racist, or it's shattering their worldview, or
Well, I think there's
admitting
a
that
lot
maybe
of
they
reasons. Yeah, I think it was several reasons. I think one is they don't want to, panic the citizens of Aurora. They're still trying to have investments in the property in Aurora. They're feeling like it's going to affect the businesses in Aurora, and they're all worried about all these things and their image in the middle of an election. But they weren't worried about the citizens, the taxpayers that were in the building and stuck there and couldn't get any help. So I feel like now it's just kind of a slap in the face when they come forward and say repeatedly, oh, it's just an isolated incident. Well, how many incidents of people hanging out outside your door with guns is okay? My threshold is one. So with
Mm.
six, I felt like I needed to come forward and maybe bang on the table a little bit to get some kind of response, to get some kind of action. Because right now they're all denying that it's an issue. Until they accept it, there's not going to be any action.
It's not necessarily just denying that it's an issue. It also seems to be that they are quite happy for there to be more of it, which
Mhm.
is remarkable. I've got in my notes here that you've been a lifelong Democrat. Has that changed?
Yes, yes. It
Right.
has, because democratic policies are what made it become what it is. And I wasn't following the news. I wasn't one of those people that was really active in my community. I had my head down and I was just trying to hold on to that little one bedroom apartment that I had. And that's all I was considering. So when this video was released, it was released for awareness and to get help for the other people who lived in the building and the other victims that had to lose their home in order for the resettlement of these migrants. Um, now, now that the video has been released, it's well publicized. Um, Nobody else is admitting that there's a problem, especially nobody on the Democratic side. I reached out to Democratic media first. Before I reached out to anybody else, I reached out to the Democratic media because that's who I was familiar with, because that's what I was
Mm.
watching. Um, no response, none at all. It was finally a Republican leaning network that is associated with Republicans. Is They were the first people who said, "Look, I'm trying to hear what you have to say. Please share it with me." And I finally released my video to him and let him see it, and he was like floored. He couldn't believe it, but he already knew about the existence of the TDA gang because it was widely publicized within the government um, in the city of Aurora. So it'd been going on for over a year, just nobody shared any of that information. So the
Yeah.
reporter that I gave my video to contacted someone in the Aurora Public Council, and they had already been speaking. It was Councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky, and she had already been speaking about the existence of gangs and the takeover of these apartment buildings. And nobody was working with her to fix it. Nobody was even acknowledging the problem. They said it was part of her imagination. What I had
So you're
outside
being
my,
right.
I couldn't have imagined that.
Well, no, it would be a
No,
terrible dream, wasn't it? But unfortunately, that dream was literally your life for a
right.
while. You've got, yeah, the political ignorance. You've got, left wing slash Democrat media ignorance as well. Being told, being gaslit. People are obviously dying as a result. People are having to move as a result. The problem's only going to get worse, and it fundamentally undermines the idea that people who are proud of their area and like where they're from, they also don't like the idea that that place will be irreversibly damaged. And unfortunately, that appears to be what's taking place here now. Have you moved then? You've had to
Yes,
move.
yes. I moved the day that my video was released. Um, so thankful for the help of
You must
Danielle
have got
Jurinsky.
regret. Sorry to interrupt, but because presumably you thought once that video goes viral, they're going to come for you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I that was the agreement I made with the reporter, that he could not release the video until I was safely out of there, because I knew they were going to come looking for me. And they knew I had cameras. My cameras were visible. They weren't hidden. They were mounted on the outside of my building. I mounted them outside of my window. They seen them. They did not care. They didn't care that I had video of them, and not just a video of the day with the masks. I have a year's worth of video of these people walking around the property with guns and having huge parties and prostitution and drugs. I have a year's worth of it. I'd been submitting police video for the last, 6 to 8 months.
Mm.
And they finally were able to use one of my videos to identify the victim of the murder that took place later that night after my video. About 10 minutes later, gunfire broke out. It went the length of the block. They found probably 30 to 35 shell casings. I had bullet holes through my car, and my husband has a bullet hole in his car. They did thousands of dollars worth of damage, not just to my property, all broken windows. The cars that are lining the blocks, there were several broken windows, several other cars with gunshots in them. These people just don't want to come out in the media. They don't want their faces seen. They don't want to be a target. I was just the only one to come forward.
Yeah. And this is happening, as far as you're concerned, in other towns right across the
Oh,
country.
yeah. It's been, TDA has been reported now in 15 states. This isn't just my building. This is all over the United States now. And I feel like the more they deny it, the worse it's going to spread.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Cindy, on that note, I think we will end it for now. But can I just say a massive thank you for coming on? Great to see you. Great to chat to you. I'm glad that you're in a better place now, although obviously it doesn't make up for anything that's happened to you previously. But Cindy, do stay in touch. We will stay in touch with you because we'd like to keep checking in with you really on this story. Cindy Romero there, former resident of Aurora, and goodness gracious me, doesn't she have a story to tell? Cindy, thank you. Until next time.
Thank you.